Hey, what's going on? Welcome to The Doug Show. In this episode, we are going to talk about email productivity tips. This is the second in the series on productivity, and like the last episode, which was on project management, my wife, Elizabeth, is joining me for this conversation. In fact, this episode is a sort of a rebroadcast. My wife and I had a podcast called Survive the 9 to 5, and we talked about, kind of corporate and job related stuff, as you could imagine, with a name like that. So anyway, that's what this episode is from, and we're going to send it over, we being, me right now and you, we're going to send it over to that discussion, and afterwards I'm going to sort of talk about some current email productivity things that I am working with right now. So, and it all comes together. And a quick reminder, there are 2 more episodes in our productivity series. The third in the series is going to be on deep work, inspired by the Cal Newport book called Deep Work. And the fourth in the series will be on prioritizing and figuring out what to work on. So let's send it over to the email productivity discussion now.
I'm Elizabeth.
And I'm Doug.
And I actually have a quick funny story about email. I remember when we had inter-school email when I was in high school, and it was so novel and so fun that you could send emails to your friend. I remember in computer science class sending emails to all my friends because the next day I wanted to come back to computer science and have so many emails that I had to scroll to another page. And I remember thinking that was super cool. Whereas now I'd rather not get any.
That's crazy. Yeah, we didn't have email or whatever at my high school or anything like that. So,
well, that was like 25 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
I think my first email account was like AOL, something like that.
You've got mail?
Yep. And it was, any email that you got was like from someone that you knew. I mean, there wasn't spam. So it's crazy.
And it was the dial-up modem, I remember. That was probably gave us like a Pavlovian reaction because we heard that like all that, and you're like starting to get a little bit excited because you're about to get some emails and get on the interweb. Very exciting.
Pretty cool. And I was going to say, now people get lots of emails. It would have been really great for us to look up some stats, but we didn't. People get a lot of emails, and just, thinking back to my corporate days, I would probably end up with 100 or so emails a day, something like that. You could imagine a lot of them you don't necessarily have to take action on, but I mean, it was a flood of emails. Now I don't have like a corporate email that I have to deal with, but I think I get even more emails than I used to. Maybe not more than 100, but there's more that I need to take action on each day. So
I was tuning out Doug as he was talking because I thought, how many emails do we get a day? So I have no idea. This is from the internet somewhere. How many emails does the average person receive per day? An average office worker receives 121 emails a day and sends around 40 business emails daily. That's a lot.
Mm-hmm. So today we're going to talk about really managing your inbox and being able to take action on emails that you need to, and just being productive with email. So me personally, I use Gmail for most things now because I don't work in a corporate setting. And even if I have other, email accounts, like I funnel everything over to one single Gmail account that I could sort and get to if I need to. And what email do you use at work?
At work, we have Outlook, Microsoft Outlook. And then personally, I have Yahoo and Gmail accounts, but they don't funnel to each other. So okay. I guess I have 3 separate email accounts that I'm managing.
Okay. Gotcha. And you know what? I also have a Yahoo account from way back, but it's mostly for, I call it spam, but it's mostly for like newsletters or stuff like that I'm not really actively reading, especially like retail stores. So just once a week or so, I'll pop over and have a look at those. One thing we could talk about in the, survive the 9 to 5 mindset. So you get a bunch of emails at work, and how can you deal with those, especially if you're getting, whatever the average was, 120 per day. Do you get a ton of emails at work, or it's not too bad?
Right now, I think it's not too bad, but I've gone through times where I did receive, hundreds of emails a day. I have always had an email management policy. I don't know. Maybe I'm a little OCD, or I just can't stand having emails in my inbox. So, and then I knew people who would literally have like 1,000 unread emails, and there'd be 1,500 emails in their inbox at work. And I can't live like that. So for me, emails, if they're not actionable, if I don't need to do anything with them, I get them out of my inbox and I file them into saved folders. So some companies have like retention policies. So your emails will automatically get deleted out of your inbox if they've been there for too long. I think that's probably a great thing, so people don't junk it up. But you can create saved folders, probably in any email server. You can create saved folders. And so I maybe, would have folder A, folder B, folder C. I read the email. If I need to do something with it, I do something with it. If I don't, I file it away. And by the end of the week, on Friday, my goal is always to have less than 20 emails sitting in my inbox. And they're all read. I never have unread emails. But I think I'm pretty unusual.
I think so too.
Yeah.
In my corporate days, and then I'll talk about how I manage things now and like the parts that I struggle with. But in the corporate days, I didn't necessarily clear my inbox on a weekly basis. And at some point, I just stopped sort of putting things in folders, and I would just throw everything into one archive, knowing that if you can search for an email effectively, then you don't need to put it in a particular folder, because at some point the folders get too big with too many messages to even search through. So I would just archive on a periodic basis. But like you, I read all the emails, and I never had like unread emails, even at the end of the day. So, that brings us to the point where if you're getting 100, we'll just say 100 emails a day, that means you're getting one every few minutes. And when you're checking out your email, do you look at the emails as you get them, or do you batch it and then, check your email periodically at specific times during the day?
I don't batch it. I wouldn't say I address every email as it comes in. I have a couple monitors now, so I usually have my email open on one monitor and like my active work on the other one. So I think I see what comes across, so I know what's there if there's anything that needs to be addressed immediately. But I don't necessarily reply to everyone right as it comes in. Does that make sense? So I know it's there. I don't turn it off. I don't ignore it. And I do have the little email pop up that I can see even if I don't have my email up on a screen. So I know what you're getting at. Doug's leading. He's leading me. I do let it serve as a distraction throughout the day, but I don't let it totally interrupt me as I go.
Gotcha. And when I was using Outlook, I remember when they put out that version that like added notifications to your desktop, I quickly figured out how to disable that. It was I was like, oh, cool. Like, when an email comes in and blah, blah, blah. But at some point I was like, it's really like every 2 minutes, there's like some pop-up thing. And I think at first I was like, oh, I could reply back sooner, but it drove me crazy. So I turned that off, and then I could just go check it when I needed to. Still ran in the background, but no notifications. And I actually, to this day, I still don't have notifications, and I use a Mac, and they try to add notifications, but it's just so fucking annoying. So I turn off notifications. They do not come on my screen, and I'll go look at stuff when I'm ready to go look at it, not when when someone sends me an email, I don't need to look at it right away, basically.
And I've worked with some jerky people over the years. They probably would say the same about me, but in Outlook, there's the exclamation point that you can put for, a very important email. And I've worked with some people who hated that. They thought, I don't care what you think the priority of this email is. I'll deal with it when I want to deal with it. So I use those exclamation points very sparingly. And more than the exclamation point, if I need something immediately, well, one, it's probably better to call or do it face to face. But if I do need to write an email and I want something immediate, I usually put "please read" in all caps in the subject line.
I used to do
Yeah. And that indicates for the people on the other end, if they aren't good email managers and they have hundreds a day as they're scanning through it, if they see "please read" in all caps, I hope that's an indicator to them that, hey, maybe you should read this because Elizabeth needs something.
I used to put "action required" because "please read" is not super direct in my opinion. It's just read it, but maybe I don't need to take any action, but "action required" is action required.
Hey, I'm even learning something. Good tip, Doug. Thanks. Maybe I'll change that.
We're talking about receiving the emails and sending a little bit. And I guess once you archive them, if you need to go find other emails or whatever, are you using some advanced searches, or do you have any tricks with that? Or do you just kind of go hunt and look through?
I don't have any tricks with that. I mean, I use the search features, keywords, things like that. But no big tricks.
Okay.
But I save almost everything. I save a lot because I have a good memory, but I don't remember everything, if that makes sense. So I have to find stuff. And then sometimes I even write myself emails to summarize meetings or to summarize something I want to remember or something that happens. And so I'll write myself an email and then file that away. So I have it there too. If I think it could be a problem in the future or contentious or someone's not going to remember something or whatever. Yeah.
Okay.
But no big search tips.
Okay. So I think that was one of the things I was good at. So I remember maybe we should have opened with something like this, what doesn't work. So I had I knew a lot of people that would set up rules and just filters and different mechanisms to make the 120 emails seem smaller. So they would route things from certain people or with certain subject lines to folders. And they would spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to set up those filters and all that stuff. And then when it came down to it, they couldn't find the emails. So they didn't know how to search very well, and they were trying to sort it, but really it just got it out of their inbox, but then they couldn't find it later. Anyway, my superpower, I think, was I was able to hear someone reference a specific email that was sent out on maybe I was in a meeting, and then in 2 seconds, I'd have the email up, and everyone else was kind of behind, just they couldn't get to it. And basically I just knew how to search well. Really simple stuff. So like you said, you could search via keywords, who it's from, what's in the subject line. And probably one of the biggest things that I used was the date in which it was sent, because if you work at a place for a few years or so, you may end up with hundreds of emails from a person. And then it's not good enough to be able to say, it's from Fred. You have to look at the emails from Fred sent, in a specific week or something like that. And then you could really narrow it down and look through the 5 or 6 that you may have gotten that week.
I agree that those routing rules can be problematic, but they can also be a very good thing. And if you don't understand what Doug was talking about, I've only used those in Outlook, but you can, I used to get, it was a daily update email around something. I can't even remember what, but every day I got this email in my box, and it wasn't anything actionable that I needed to do. It was more just for your reference, FYI, and it always had the same subject line. So I set up a rule if you ever see this exact subject line, move the email to this folder. And so I think for those types of things, they can be very useful just to get stuff out of your inbox so you don't have to deal with it. But yeah, setting up too much of those is probably a big problem because you're going to miss something. The emails, when they move to those folders, still show as unread. So that's at least an indication that, oh, hey, I have 10 emails in this folder, but it's definitely out of your immediate line of sight.
Yeah. And I use those filters also, but it was stuff like you're talking about. So automated emails that always came out. And at some point, I'm like, I don't need like these 6 emails a day that basically just have information. If I ever need to go look at whatever data is in there, then I could just go look if I need to. So I would use them strategically like that. And the ones I'm talking about are like people are trying to route things because it's an email from a person on a certain team. So that sort of thing. But
one thing to be aware of, I mentioned companies can have retention policies on emails. I think that can also apply to sent items, which was a new thing for me because I at other companies, my sent items were there forever, and even sent items expire. So if I know that I'm sending something and I want a record of that, I'll blind copy myself on it and then file that away too.
Good point. Yeah, good point.
Oh, okay. Can change gears a little bit when we're talking about emails. Expect anything that you write in email to go anywhere. That's all.
Yep.
If you put it in writing and you send it out in email, anyone could end up with it.
How might that happen?
Well, I mean, a couple of ways. It's very easy to forward an email to somebody else. And something that just happened to me recently, I sent an email in reference to a meeting that I wasn't going to attend to a person. They said, "Oh, you're not going to be there. Will you, let me know what you think?" So I jotted down a few notes. That person actually pulled that email up in front of the whole meeting group at the meeting. So it wasn't just Elizabeth said this or Elizabeth had concerns with this. They actually pulled the email that went privately to her up in front of the whole group. So it could also get printed out and left somewhere. I mean, your company, I don't know. I don't know if I actually believe the retention policies that they actually do delete things off the servers. Maybe they do. But if you put it in writing in an email, even in your Yahoo or Gmail or whatever, I would just assume that it's there forever and that anybody could end up reading it.
Mm-hmm. Further, now we may even get our corporate emails on our smartphones. So, for me, working for myself now, like all the emails I get, would come to my phone, unless I don't want them to, which I actually limit that because it's a little insane to be able to get an email 24 hours a day and have your phone vibrate at you. So, me personally, I don't have notifications for emails. I don't have the little banner or badge to show me how many unread emails. So it used to get in my head and I'm like, oh no, I got one email. Oh, I better go check on it.
Right.
Now it's only when I go look to see if I have anything on my schedule when I'm ready to go look for it.
That's smart. I used to have, when I first got a smartphone, I had the emails pushed out to me and I got like you said, a buzz or a ding, but I pull everything now. And I do have work email on my phone. I don't always have it active, but I always turn it off over the weekend. So I don't have it there as a reminder.
Right. I think, depending on where you're working, you have to obviously meet the expectations, but a lot of times, not always, but at least in my experience, sometimes you may feel like you need to check your email all the time and during the weekends because that's what everyone else does, but it may not be a policy or something you have to do. Also, I got laid off, so maybe I'm not the right person. But I mean, you got to set boundaries. Otherwise, you're getting emails and on the weekend and thinking you have to reply back. And sometimes if you just clarify with the team or whoever you're working with, it's probably in most cases fine to respond during business hours. And just because somebody sent an email on Sunday afternoon, it doesn't mean you should reply back on Sunday evening.
I agree. But again, we may not be the right people to talk to. Because, yeah,
it depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to, make partner at some
right
consultancy or something like that, then, maybe you got to do that stuff. But
so the best story I ever heard about an out of office. So in Microsoft Outlook, if you're going to be on vacation, or say you're going to be at a conference and you don't have access to your email, you can set up a little rule called an out of office where you can say, hey, I'm going to be away from email for the next 5 days. I'll reply when I get back, just to let people know that that's where you are. The best rule I heard about an out of office was someone put in it, I'm going to be on vacation for the next 2 weeks. Any emails I receive during that time frame will be deleted. So if this is important, email me when I get back or call me when I get back. And I thought that was awesome. I've never had the guts to put that in there. I don't think it would be well received in the places I've worked, but I love that because you get back from vacation and you can have 1,000 emails to go through. You start going through them, I don't know, from the earliest to the latest or from the most recent, however you decide to do it. And a lot of that stuff will already have been taken care of, and you're just wasting your time, sorting through stuff that's 2 weeks old. So I loved that out of office, but I don't know. I never had the guts to actually do it.
I've heard of that a couple times too. And I think the key part that you didn't mention there because it wasn't super relevant, but you got to leave a backup or a couple of people like, hey, if you need something, these are the people to go to solve your problem or whatever you need. They're filling in for me. And then when you get back, you of course, find out from them what happened, get the debriefing, and then you can maybe go through the emails if you want to. And everyone will assume that you deleted them, but at least you're caught up. But hopefully your backup told you, what you needed to handle.
Sure.
So, but that's pretty good. I mean, and I think there were a few times where maybe I was out on vacation for a couple weeks, and then, you have literally 1,000 emails. And I mean, it takes a couple days to go through it. And I know some people, it's you spend the first day that you're back just dealing with your inbox and figuring out if you need to do anything. So anything else on the corporate side of email or anything?
I have a few other tips that I do just on email management. You can flag things for follow-up. So when I say I only want to have 20 emails in my inbox, I don't count the ones that are flagged for follow-up. I think I always put a date on those. So you can actually create a little flag and put a date on it so it'll turn red and remind you when it's due. So that's a cool thing. I like that a lot. And then you can also put color categories on your emails. So I've had times just where there was categories of things I needed to do. And so I would make certain things green and certain things blue. And then that was also a way to sort of visually see how much stuff I had sitting out there. I think those are the two main things that I do. But there's a lot of tools with Outlook that'll help you sort of stay organized and not get overwhelmed with your emails. I think that's all for me, corporate wise.
All right.
You going on non-corporate?
Yeah, I think some of the ideas translate also. So I'm using Gmail primarily. And as I mentioned, I sort of funnel all the other domains of emails that I may have out there into one account. So if you don't realize it, you can have Gmail check your other accounts for you and pull in those emails. And then you can also send on those accounts. So I have an account, doug@nichesiteproject.com, and I can send and receive emails from that account on Gmail. So everything kind of comes together and consolidates into one place so I can see everything. So that's pretty cool. So I could open that one window or tab, and then I have everything I need. Now I do, as you mentioned, sort of keep everything out of the inbox. Like some things need to go there, but some accounts I just want to immediately archive and tag. So there's no folders in Gmail, but tags and labels are pretty much the same thing. So I could click on a specific label and see everything that has that label in its box. So it's kind of like a folder, but not exactly. Anyhow, consolidating everything is really helpful. Then I don't have to check like 18 different accounts or whatever I might be dealing with. There's this really cool extension for Gmail, and I think you can get it on Outlook now too. It's called Boomerang. Have you heard of it?
I have not.
Do you know anything about it? Or
I remembered this documentary I saw where someone used a boomerang. I think it was Crocodile Dundee, right. And he used the boomerang to get the robber and hit him in the head. That type of boomerang? It's
similar to that. They have a logo cool. like that. Yeah. So Boomerang is an extension that it does a few things. So number one, it can send on a delayed basis, right? So you could send an email later, you could draft it up, send it sometime in the future. It could be like 15 minutes or 15 days, whatever you want. You can also flag the email to basically go to the top of your inbox for a couple different reasons. So it could be a certain amount of time has passed and you didn't get a reply, or if you do get a reply, or if you don't get a reply, just if 1 week goes by or however much time, it'll go back to the top of your inbox. The idea is you can just click the boomerang button, get it to do whatever you intend for it to do. And then you can be reminded, but it's archived and it gets out of your inbox, which is kind of the idea that you can like completely like get through your inbox and have things happen. So it's great because you don't have to set like reminders elsewhere or anything like that. You could sort of simulate it by setting a reminder in like Outlook in the calendar and say, in 2 days, remind me about this email. Boomerang handles it all. And there's a couple other functions in there too. I think you can put like notes on a specific email. So
nice.
You could say, this will boomerang. And if you want to make sure you remember why you're boomeranging it, then you could put the notes in there.
Oh, that sounds really useful.
Mm-hmm. It's really cool. And I think you get some free functionality. And then if you pay, I think it's maybe like $10 a month or $5 a month, then it's basically like unlimited usage. So, and here's one sort of use case that's really helpful to have that is, let's say you're going through your inbox and you're replying back to emails. Sometimes when you reply back to an email, you may get like one or even more responses back to it. So let's say you have 20 emails, you're replying back and you're like, all right, I'm going to make it through. I'm going to get to inbox 0. And then as you're going down, you're getting like 2-3 more emails in response. So if you delay it by like an hour or two, then at least you can get them to go out the door, like be sent. And then when you're working through your inbox, you can at least have the satisfaction that you're like replying and your inbox isn't like, reaccumulating again. I don't know if I'm using the right word there, but you're not getting more emails as you're going.
I see. Actually, are you a boomerang salesperson?
No, but I should be. Huh?
I'm also a client. Hair Club for Men. Sorry. So I manage our credit card bill here. And so every month I send Doug an email and I'm like, hey, credit card is due. Let me know when we can pay it. And I just flag that email like as unread. So I don't lose it. But I would love to be able to boomerang it because, sometimes it takes Doug a day or two to get back to me. Sometimes I have to remind him again. And that's frustrating. I would like that functionality.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Learning all sorts of stuff today. I already forgot the first thing I learned. What was that?
Action required.
Action required. And that was the good one.
Yep.
Action. Oh, you know what? I'm going to start putting that in my emails to you. All caps. Action required.
What I'll do, I'll make a rule. You only need to tell me if it's over a certain amount. So that should pretty much eliminate you needing to tell me. So we're solving all sorts of problems here.
We'll get back to you first time we bounce our credit card payment.
So a couple other things, just me personally, at this point, I don't have to deal with a corporate email. So I still get a lot of emails in, and I don't get as many, but I think I need to take some action on them. I have an internet marketing blog and a YouTube channel. So I get emails from readers and like subscribers and viewers. And sometimes they're asking some question. Now, this is tricky, right? Because I want to stay knowledgeable about the questions that people are asking and understand, the audience and stuff. But at some point, it's like too many emails and, hey, guess what? I've answered that question a lot of times. And I can't blame people for asking. Apparently, I'm really approachable and people think they could just send me one email and get like free help and stuff like that. So I must seem really nice and helpful just in general. But at some point...
Sorry, spontaneous laughter. You are very nice and helpful.
But at some point, it's like, it's a little frustrating because it's hard to keep up. And I have like an assistant that helps me with some of the emails. And I have a little bit of a system to, help alleviate some of the common questions. But I mean, the fact is I can't afford to just answer people's questions for free one-on-one. That's why I do the blog, because hundreds and thousands of people can read it. And that's why I do the YouTube channel. So the point is I get a lot of emails and I do struggle. And that's one of the big things that I'm trying to figure out. How can I still reply to the emails without literally just doing something for free with like people that are not customers. They don't pay me any money. They're just people that read the blog. So I struggle with that. And, I try and do my best. And in fact, I reply back to almost all the emails. It just takes me a little bit longer. And the way I deal with it, or at least try to, number one, my personal email gets behind. And a lot of times what I do is I just deal with the emails that I need to each day, like probably during the work week. And then it accumulates. And sometimes I'll end up with maybe 50 or 60 emails in the inbox where I've taken action and replied back on stuff that I need to, but there's other things where maybe someone just asked me a question. Maybe someone is asking me to do something for them. And I'm like, I'm not sure. Most of the time I don't do those things. Those are things like, hey, Doug, can you feature my product on your channel? And there's literally nothing in it for me and all upside for them. And they're asking me to do work. Usually that gets ignored. So it takes me some time to work through them. The other hard part, and I think everyone probably deals with this now, where you get just various email updates from different companies that you're dealing with, other services, and just little update emails. Do you get a lot of these on your personal email?
I do. I mean, if you bought one thing from, I'll use a company that's out of business, Linens and Things. Like if you bought one thing from Linens and Things 20 years ago, then you get an email from them once a week now.
Right. So, the hard part, I try to unsubscribe for a lot of those, but I use like various software products like Boomerang, like
sure.
Just SEO tools and such. And there's little updates here and there. So just over time, like they add up. And that's one area where I think a couple weeks ago, we were about to take a trip and I wanted to clear the inbox, and I saw in my tab for updates in Gmail, I had like 800 emails.
Oh my.
And most of them are like no action needs to be taken. And what I did, I just went back 6 weeks and basically archived everything, because I was like, if 6 weeks passed and I didn't do anything, it's probably fine. I probably don't need to take any action. And if so, someone is going to ask again. So that was helpful. I think it's declaring email bankruptcy, and you're just like, fuck it, I'm getting rid of everything. And if something comes up again, then I'll take action then.
I like that term. I'm going to declare email bankruptcy. And I just recently decided, hey, I don't have to live like this in my personal email with all the marketing emails that have just accumulated over time. I think I had just sort of accepted it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's just what it is. You get all these emails from every company you've ever walked into. And then I realized, hey, I don't have to live like this. And so what I'm trying to do, I think, is like once a day or once a week or whatever, to just go through, like you said, and unsubscribe. And so instead of trying to tackle it all at once, which I think is really overwhelming, I'm like, linens and things. So I can pick on a company that's out of business, but I get the linens and things email, and I'm like, I don't even live where there's a linens and things anymore, especially since we moved to Montana. We don't even have access to a lot of stores like on site. Like, well, if I'm never going to buy from linens and things, I'm just going to unsubscribe. And my personal emails have gone way down because honestly, most of the people that I care about, that I want to stay in touch with on a personal real basis, I call. I'm not sending emails to my friends. Maybe other people do, but I'm more of a phone talker than to sit down and write an email.
Okay. Yeah, good point.
There you go.
So yeah, I do struggle a bit keeping up with the emails, but the other thing that I do, and I picked this up from the Charles Duhigg book, Smarter, Faster, Better, something like that. I put a lot of pressure on myself before I send the emails thinking, I need to make like a longer reply and really be thorough. But instead, or I need to like go through my whole inbox and there's 50 messages. Instead, sometimes what I do, I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm going to reply back to 5 or 6 of them. I don't care what order or what real priority they have. And I'm going to keep the replies like short and concise, maybe 1 to 2 sentences. So it's not like I have to over deliver via email. I can just answer the question or be slightly helpful, just get the emails out. And even just hitting, 5 of them, you're knocking out 10% and making it a little bit easier. You do that a couple days in a row and your inbox isn't as out of control as it was. Great, huh?
Yeah, this is pretty exciting. When Doug said we were going to do an episode on email, I was like, what are we going to talk about? Here we've been rambling on for quite a while. I don't think I have anything else to say about emails.
All right, cool. So a little bit of a recap here. I say don't worry about like sorting your emails too much. Maybe you can do some sorting, do some filtering to get things out of your inbox that you don't necessarily need to see. There's, a few different tools you can use to make things easier, like Boomerang. I like it a lot. And like I said, it's definitely for Gmail. And I think they have an Outlook version as well. There's a lot of cool features with that. And you may not use all of them, but at least a couple of them are going to be pretty helpful.
Yeah. And just remember, anything you put in an email could go anywhere else. I know we talked about all caps in a subject line, but if you didn't know, all caps kind of means you're yelling. So use that sparingly. Some people don't take to that too kindly.
Yeah, I was going to say, especially when I get an email like that from a person that I don't know, and it's like all caps or anything sort of rude, then I'm pretty much, and I'm in a unique situation. But yeah, I mean, if someone's asking me to do something for them and they're rude, then, I mean, you could expect either nothing back or for me to mark their email as spam. So,
yeah. Well, we didn't even get into the etiquette of email. We'll find some sources on that and put them in the show notes so we don't talk about that. But yeah, there's tons of email etiquette, especially in the corporate world. So we'll find some stuff on that.
I highly recommend on your phones to turn off the banners, turn off the notifications, and make the email a tool that you use and not something that makes noise and vibrates, and then you're like a slave to your phone and email and anyone else that like sends you an email. In fact, one of my friends, Ravi, he changes his phone to grayscale so it's less enticing. And Elizabeth, you recently did that, right?
Yeah, I have. I just actually turned it back to grayscale as we're talking. I have a little shortcut. It's like a triple click that'll turn it to grayscale. And I do it on and off, but it's sort of hard for me to figure out where my apps are because I didn't realize how much I looked at them by the colors. So it kind of bugs me to have it in grayscale. It's definitely less appealing. Just one of the tools to make your phone less of something that you want to look at.
Right. And this, I mean, we're doing this series on productivity and we're talking email productivity, but this is just like a mind hack to make yourself happier is like, get rid of the phone a little bit. Like I charge my phone away from where I sleep in the bed. So I have to go like across the house to get to my phone. So 90% of the time I'm not like immediately checking my phone. Sometimes I do. Sometimes the phone's right next to me, but a lot of the time, phone's far away. So little things like that. And one of them is to make your phone less fun. Every now and then I will take apps and move them to another screen or move their spot. So I can't like automatically go to Instagram. I have to like look and hunt for it. So that's another trick. Just like move your icons around so you don't know or you don't remember exactly where they're at, or just move things like 3-4 screens away so it's harder to get to.
All right, we're getting off topic. Emails, but I think we're done, right?
Yep. I was getting pretty far off topic there at the end, which is funny. But it's relevant in that, it was all around productivity and not getting distracted. And actually in the last few days, I turned on the screen time monitoring on my iPhone and put limits on like Instagram and some of the other social apps, which some of the apps I don't use socially, but I use them more as tools or communication mechanisms, right? So like WhatsApp, I use that for like conferencing sometimes and just chatting with friends or family, but not in a, quote unquote social aspect now, or like social media aspect. But one thing that I, every now and then, not too often, I don't think, I will waste quite a bit of time looking at like Instagram, and it's literally like zero value. Like I get very little out of it, and it is literally a way to like get distracted. So that's been helpful. And, sometimes it is good to get distracted after I've finished my work, maybe, or if it's just like a time slot where I can waste time, that's fine. It's slightly entertaining sometimes, but there's no like real utility other than like distraction. And there's plenty of distraction. So I really don't need extra help on that. I mentioned that I was going to talk about a tip that has been helpful for me in the last couple weeks. Now, you can imagine from the episode, I like to have, good email productivity tactics or just an overall strategy so it doesn't like suck me into, a place where I don't want to go. However, what happened is I kind of got out of my routine. So we recently moved, and if you've been listening to the show, my schedule sort of was impacted quite a bit. So I had to spend several weeks trying to sell the house, trying to pack up, drive down like a 10, 12-hour drive multiple times and move in, right? So moving can be time consuming to say the least. And it can also take up a lot of your like mental energy. So I did a lot of work ahead of time so that I could take the time off and not worry so much about, getting podcast episodes together, writing blog posts, YouTube videos, etc. And that was great. And then when I got a little more settled, I still wasn't in a routine, but what I had was like a backlog in my inboxes. So I have my personal email, my business email, my, customer support email, and they're all like different buckets. They all have a different level of priority. And kind of what happened is I just got sucked into checking email all the time because I was behind in various areas. Now, the customer support email, those are actual paying customers. Those are students of mine. So that was like number one priority. I had someone monitoring the email account ongoing, and I was checking in even when I had my days off while I was moving. The whole point here is I realized I kept going to my 3 to 4 different inboxes, hitting refresh, and I was responding back to essentially low priority emails that didn't really matter. Some of them were, just chores for me, right? Like someone sends me an email to ask a question, and I have no relationship with them, right? They're not a student of mine. They're not a potential student of mine. They're just someone asking a question, and I would reply back, right? I would reply back, and it's not a bad thing, right? I guess potentially sometime in the future, I could work with them. So it's not like inherently a bad thing, but it wasn't a high priority for me. And it was someone sending me an email, and then it became a chore for me. It became a piece of work that I needed to do to help them. Again, not inherently bad, but I think you can see the issue at scale. When I have a reasonable size audience, I may get 10 emails a day asking me some question, and sometimes a response, like if I really went deep, a response may take 15 minutes. You multiply that out, and it's pretty easy to see that all of a sudden I can get roped into, an hour or 2 of sending email replies for things that don't really matter, or at least they don't matter from a time perspective. I don't have to reply back right away. So that said, I would end up, maybe sending a few emails out, maybe putting some time into it, and then I would send out, say, 10 emails. I get 5 responses back before I even finish answering all 10 of them. So, it's kind of interesting. I should just take my own advice in many cases. And what I realized when I stepped back and I got out of the reactionary mode there, I realized that I should be batching my emails at a time when I can work on them, and I can maybe time block it so I can go a little bit more quickly, and maybe the responses aren't as thorough, but I can figure out the proper level of response depending on who was emailing me and what they needed, that sort of thing. So anyway, sometimes you just got to take your own advice, and like I said, batching the emails, tremendously helpful even in the last couple weeks. I've gone back to putting the phone in another room to make sure that I don't pick it up first thing and check my email, and instead I'm getting up, doing my normal little morning routine, have some coffee, drink some water, all that kind of stuff. And then I'm going to the gym, and I'm working out for 30 minutes to an hour plus before I do anything. And I've been feeling great with that. Just having some physical activity it really changes the shape of my morning, I guess. So anyway, we will leave it at that for this episode, and be sure to check out the next 2 episodes. Deep work is part 3 in the series. One of my favorite topics, really interesting, and it really goes hand in hand with what I mentioned before, where I was just refreshing email boxes, replying back to emails, feeling busy, but really not getting anything done. And then the 4th and final productivity part is the priorities. It's all about priorities, figuring out what to work on. Again, all these things kind of go hand in hand, and when you put them together, a lot of times you'll find you're getting a lot more done. So thanks a lot for listening, and be sure to check out some of the other episodes. If you happen to not be subscribed to The Doug Show, please subscribe. I really do appreciate it. Hey, it's me again, and I just wanted to remind you that I do have a voicemail and you can call in, leave me a message. So we got our first message the other day, and that's going to be coming up on an upcoming episode. So just check the show notes or description, and you'll be able to see the voicemail number, and you literally can call in and leave a message. If you don't want to and you prefer the written word, send an email over to feedback@doug.show, and I will see that email, potentially read it on the air. You can ask questions, leave me details, all that sort of thing. So, love to get feedback from you just in general, and it's great to get questions, especially those voicemail messages. So we'll catch you next time. Thank you.